Anyway, and then Wychmere, which of course started as a pond with a horse track around it, and it's sort of purpose-built Sapatucket, very practical and everything is, you know, lined up for. But I mean, am I nuts about that, or are they completely different, and you get different things happening in them and going out of them, and make what I said just sound like it's sensible? Can you do that?
Yeah, I mean, they're very different. I mean, you know, all of the transient fishing boats from all over the Northeast, mostly Maine.
Yeah.
No, they usually stay at Sapatucket because they never get the birds. You never see anything like that in Wychmere. Wychmere is a very tight group, doesn't change much. The same people live that area year in, year out. There again, I'm not too familiar with Allen Harbor other than the town dock along the parking lot.
Well, we have a man here who is, Ren. What's the story with that? I want to tell you too, and this is the last time I'll inject my own stories. One year, I think I was 14, I walked across Allen Harbor. It froze solid, and a couple of us walked, and I thought that was pretty
I've
cool.
seen a Suburban parked out near the channel.
Yeah, I drove
the harbor.
Wow.
I drove on the harbor once in a van.
Did you?
Well, Allen Harbor, really, for a good number of years, was pretty strictly a powerboat harbor.
Yeah.
Which was a lot different than Wychmere, which was the sailboat harbor. And at one point in time, we had well over 200 lineman boats on moorings in Allen Harbor. That was before all the docks and slips were put there. I too, like Brad Clark, had one of my first jobs there was the taxi boy. My dad used to guarantee him $5 a day and run the people back and forth to the boat, which was always a little hairy in the springtime because with 200 white linemen, customer would come down and get in the boat, and I wouldn't know him from Adam. I'd say, "What boat's it?" He said, "Oh, it's the white lineman." We'd have to circle around. They all looked alike. The only thing that was different was the name on the transom. So we spent an awful lot of time roaming around the harbor back then. But then suddenly the moorings kind of dwindled a little bit, and some of the private docks came in. The slips came aboard for Allen Harbor, first along the shoreline, and then projected out into the harbor. Allen Harbor Yacht Club started in the late 50s, early 60s, and they built a good number of 60-some-odd slips out there for their membership, and the moorings went from 200 down to about 60, I believe. It's out there now. Wow. But it's been pretty much, as far as we're concerned at the Marine Service, a powerboat harbor. The Yacht Club has more and more sailboats coming in now. Very difficult to get in, as you told us about a little bit earlier. The channel is a double S-curve channel.
Yeah.
So we have to limit the size of the boats pretty much too, because if you get too big, you have to start around the second curve before you have gotten around the first one. And that doesn't work for a big boat. They would, one way or the other, go up onto the mud. We have a pretty good silting problem there at Allen Harbor, so deep draft boats can't negotiate in there too well. I have a picture back in my office of my dad standing in the middle of the channel with a measuring gauge. He's got his shoes and socks off, and there's no water. And that was the channel in the harbor.
Oh my goodness.
So thank goodness for the dredge and that. And still to this day, the county dredge comes by once a year to take off a piece of the beach that winds its way around the corner. The property out just to the west of Allen Harbor has come down and down and down and down, just built. It moves from west to east and builds bigger and bigger until now, where we had a long jetty there. That jetty is now right at the beach line, and the water and sand erodes right around the end of the jetty and comes right in the channel and forms like a little beach there, and makes it very difficult for boats getting in and out. Thanks to the county dredge, the codfish, they come in every spring and clean that out for us so we can get in and out. And hopefully we'll have another dredging session here pretty quick that'll make about 5.5 feet of water in the whole harbor. Once again, it hasn't been done since the early 1950s.
Where does that dredge material go? I noticed that for the past couple of years, there was no beach whatsoever at the end of Gray Neck, and we used to live down around that when I was a kid. I mean, a nice set of stairs going down into mid-air and rocks, and all of a sudden this year, there's a nice little beach back again, and I don't know how long it'll be there, but is that dredge stuff usable? Could some of it be used for that?
It's great. Portions of it are. The outside channel is pure sand.
Yeah.
And
That's probably what they did then.
we tried it, actually, the thing is still called a dredge permit, but really you go after beach nourishment. And that's
Right.
what they do with the sand. They
Yeah.
put it either west of the harbor or east of the harbor. And sometimes the townsfolk fight over that, who's gonna get the sand, because it's certainly does a lot to enhance the beaches.
You may have to pay for that sand
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
When the dredge first does it, and you hit any of that mud, that's when they have to stop, because the silt is something you don't want on the beaches.
No.
And right now, they're having a hard job trying to find a location for dumping that, what is actually botanical residue, I guess you'd call it, or whatever, from the peat beds that the harbor sits on. And that is just yucky silt, and that has to come out and go somewhere else. And disposal areas now are few and far between, so they're hunting feverishly for a place to put that when they do the dredging.
So back up, 100 years or so, not quite, but when we talk about Harwich being such a water town, Harwich Port, I can remember the locations of two of the long docks, Old Wharf Road and C Street. Wasn't there one on C Street?
C Street.
And was there a third one? I thought I remember.
There's one at Bank Street.
Bank Street.
There was one at Bank Street?
One at the end of Freeman Street.
Yeah.
And the
Depot, yeah. And I think the ones that I'm aware of anyway were taken out by ice during the winter. And Watt Small talked, not that he was there for a lot of it, but this was back in packet trading and everything, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, my grandfather's book talks about his father having to anchor off 3 miles off of the shoreline,
Yeah.
and then take a rowboat or a small sail to Wychmere Harbor, and either beach it because of that narrow opening. Again, it was a sailboat, or take it down the narrow channel. But his boat was a 4-masted schooner, really 300 feet long.
Yeah.
And when Captain Ellis visited home, he had his family live on Bank Street. And by the way, he was only home maybe about 40 days out of a full 12-month period. And it was a big celebration when he did come home. You never know, well, you never knew what he'd have in his pack.
Yeah.
And one time, he was able to bring back from Central America a load of shingles for roofing shingles. So that required quite a problem getting that ashore.
Sure.
But he never, those schooners, never really, the coastal schooners, never really used those docks to the extent that...
Wouldn't be able to, would they?
Yeah, it wasn't deep enough.
Well, someone said that you could look out offshore, in South Harwich and Harwich Port and see hundreds of boats.
All those schooners, those 4-masted, 5-masted even, were coming up from New York, waiting for the right time to get by Monomoy,
Yeah.
because that was the real treacherous point. And there's so many skeleton boats off of Monomoy from that point going north, up Chatham, up to Truro, that they had to be patient and they had to wait. And when the time broke, there's reports of just a whole line of boats, all schooners, sailing up past the elbow at Monomoy and then heading north to Boston and to Portland.
What a parade.
My mother read somewhere that one day somebody counted 365 sailing vessels heading north and south off the back, up the backside
Yeah.
in the 1860s or something like that.
Yeah,
On the
that was,
highway.
so the advantage of putting in the Cape Cod Canal was huge for that trade because they didn't have to contend with those winds and currents.
Shoals.
And so loss of life was dramatically dropped when the Cape Canal opened. So,
The advent of the railroad
Oh,
did
yeah.
end the wharf, really,
Yes.
without the need to bring things in by water.
Right.
There wasn't enough business to keep the wharf going. So,
Gloria found something in the Central Cape Press, wasn't it? She found something from 1952, an article about a ruckus down at Wychmere. Not a ruckus, but there was a certain group of people who thought that the town should demolish those fishing shacks down there at the town pier and get rid of all the riffraff hanging around there. And what do you say, 40 people came out when you talk about Harry Hunt? Victor Ryder, you don't have that with you, do you? But all the local folks who came out and made a big fuss and said that was part of the town, and those people were part of the town, and I guess they made themselves heard pretty effectively, and it got no further than that, but I want to get rid of all that fish shack type of stuff. I'm glad they're still there.
that's what makes Wychmere Harbor Wychmere Harbor.
That's right.
It's just beautiful because of those shacks.
Well, the word was, I might be wrong, but that Mrs. Gray, the town pier used to be on the west side,
Yeah.
and Mrs. Gray bought the land across the harbor and had the town pier moved to the other side. I don't know whether there's any truth to that or not.
Well, sounds good.
You know.
Nobody's here to argue with us today, Skipper.
Very good.
Whatever you say.
Whatever we can make up goes,
Whatever you
right?
say.
I can't think of seeing like old pictures, old charts. I've seen much of a big dock of it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But you see, I mean, in those days, I mean, there were shacks right under the park.
Yeah.
You see pictures of that, so whether the town owned that land and the town pier was, you know, two boards with a dinghy at the end and a shack, who knew? You know.
channel wasn't deep enough for very much of a boat 100 or 110 years ago.
Catboat.
There are lots and lots of small catboats, but nothing big.
I mean, the channel must have originally been like hand dug. I mean, it was dug before.
It was, I think. Well, after that, they had the racetrack there,
1888.
Salt Pond.
Just 2 years.
Took 2 years to dig the
Yes,
channel?
that was only there 2 years.
Wow,
With a shovel.
yeah.
I do remember the fishing fleet at the Snow Inn dock, which came on about 1946 when Frank Biddle and Edric Thompson opened the Thompson Brothers Fish and Lobsters
Yeah.
business. And there were fishing boats rafted 3 abreast onto along the whole
At the
length of
clam
the
bar.
dock.
Yeah,
And, yeah, well, the clam bar hadn't come on yet, but
but they were selling
lots of.
they
They started selling clams out of the window in
Yeah.
one of the fish houses about 1948, I think. But that was a major fleet of boats, and a lot of those people were drunk at night, so.
No, not,
When I-
it wouldn't have been
When
Frank
I
or
came sailing out of the harbor in my boat one night, one of those people in his boat was backing and filling, going alongside. He looked at me coming out, and he turned around and stared at me, and then he put his boat in hard reverse and wham, right in the amidships, tore up the sheer strake and so on. So it went right back to the dock.
Obviously not a Harwich man, right?
Maybe he was. He was a Harwich man. I would have been considered a Worcester boy,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
worthy of much consideration. But it was pretty colorful to see all